Saturday was the UK Open with 370 players. Sunday was the German Open with 512 players. At both of these events, I got top 16 with board breaker Voiceless Voice. Top 16 at a regular regional wouldn't be much for top as you don't get anything. But at Opens, you get a booster box for top 16. And more importantly, for people doing the Worlds race, you get a sizable chunk of Worlds points. At the UK Open, going into the last round, I had 7 wins, 1 draw, and no losses. I was on table 1 for the final round, where I lost, and unfortunately got bumped to 9th due to tiebreaks. At the German Open, going into the last round, I had 7 wins and 1 loss. I was on table 3 for the last round, where I lost to Floanderes after getting Featherstorm to game 1, and Dimensional Fissure to game 3. Fissure is normally pretty fine to play through, but it's the Fissure plus the Dreaming Town plus the map plus the Empen was a little bit too much. So overall, I did 7-1-1 and 7-2. The deck was very strong and I played the exact same build for both events. But with no further ado, enjoy! So onto the main deck, we have 3 Low, 3 Diviner, and Trias. This engine is very, very good, I like it a lot, especially because I play Branded Fusion, so if they interrupt Diviner, you can go Branded Fusion and send Trias. And then I play 3 Saphira, very nice card. For the Ritual Monster, we play the 2 Skull and the 2 Cerebus. The Odd Eyes Monster is in my side deck because this card is very good going first, but not that great going second. And even going first, a lot of your combos never really end up getting to him. It's only when you have like a pretty engine heavy hand that you get to the Odd Eyes Monster turn 1. However, after the next set releases, there is a new spell card that makes this card definitely worthwhile putting in the main deck. But yeah, the 2 Skull Guardian is of course very standard, as is 2 Cerebus. I'm pretty sure this is also fairly standard. This card's very nice because it is a non-once per turn Solemn Warning, so if you have one on field and then later you tag into a second one via the effect of the Voiceless Cerebus, then you can negate a second summon. This cannot negate summons that do start a chain, but it can negate things like Link summons, Xyz summons, summons like the Witch, that sort of thing. And it's very good, and what makes it especially good is the effect in hand to stop targeting makes this deck very good against stuff like Imperm, Veiler and Mourner, which is especially nice. Unfortunately, this card can be a bit awkward to draw sometimes, but it's not always too bad. Speaking of awkward draws, we have the Albaz and the Yaugen, because I play Branded Fusion. So generally, I'm not a massive fan of the Branded Fusion engine in the hand trap build of Voiceless Voice, and I normally would not play Yaugen with hand traps, but the reason to play Branded Fusion and the Yaugen with board breakers is that you can break a majority of their board and not really care about their follow-up, because after you break their board, you just do this into Albion and summon the Yaugen, so then they don't have a follow-up. And I don't really play any hand traps in this deck at all. The only one that I kind of do play is Phantasme, which isn't really a hand trap, because it's only a hand trap card if you're drawing into more hand traps, right? But the point of it in this deck is that you can draw into board breakers. I didn't expect to face more than 4 Snake Eye. I believe I faced 4 or 5 at the Open, and I faced, I think, 2 at the German Open. The reason to main deck one of this still is because you need a Dark Monster in your deck for when you get Dimensional Shifted, so that you can go Branded Fusion into Lebellion. And this was the best one to main deck, I think, in the Board Breaker build, but in the hand trap build, of course if you're not already playing this, I'd say the best one to play would be Bestial Magnamut. Magnamut, I think, is really good in this deck. You don't actually need to play any of the Bestials. You can just play Magnamut because it can search for Saphira. Since Saphira is a dragon, it can also search for both of the Cerebus cards. I was pretty close to playing Magnamut in this build too, but I think it pairs a little bit weirdly with Board Breakers sometimes, but I do want to definitely try it some more. And then for the rest of the Voiceless Voice cards, we have 3 Barrier. This card is incredible. 1 Radiance. This card is insane. This is one of the best cards in the universe, I swear. It's so cool. If you open up enough engine, you can end on Skull Guardian, the Cerebus, of course you have below as well, and when you have the option to both ritual summon via the effect of Saphira, and you have the prayer, then you can also end on Cerevis. So then once you tag out the Voiceless Cerevis into either another Cerevis or a Skull Guardian, then you get to pop 3 cards with the trap, which is insane. Even just your normal end board, popping 2 is also really good. Summoning from the deck's very nice. Generally, you want to be not popping with this card if possible, because we don't have the new spell card yet to recur it back to hand. But if it is clear that you can make a big push or close the game out on the following turn, then it is of course the right choice to use the effect to pop 2 or 3 cards. And then moving on with the rest of the deck, we have 2 of the ritual spell and 3 pre-prep. I think it definitely can be correct to play 2 pre-prep. However, I like playing 42 cards in this deck because I think there's a couple of awkward draws you have. Not like loads, but you have the Old Man, and then I have Albaz, the Yalgan, and the Trap can be a bit awkward sometimes to draw as well. So playing 42 is a pretty sweet spot of a number because your deck is still fairly low, so where you're going to be seeing your good cards a lot, but it means you see these cards clumped together a little bit less. And the reason why this is relevant to playing 3 pre-prep is because it gives you an extra starter card in 42. And then speaking of consistency, we play 3 Prosperity. This card's very nice because it finds you Branded Fusion, but it's also very good because I play Board Breakers. So I can use Prosperity to find these lovely cards, which we have 3 Econ, 3 Droplet, and 3 Darkwaller. These are my Board Breakers that I play. So the main reason why I chose to not play hand traps was not because I think hand traps are bad. Hand traps in Voiceless are very good. However, a pretty common deck building trend recently is that their Snake Eye players are playing Crossout and Talents. So if I don't play hand traps, I can make their Crossout and Talents become a lot worse. This is also the reason why I'm not playing Talents. Talents generally is a very good board breaker that I would play in this main deck. However, because people are playing Crossout in Snake Eye, and they're not going to have anything else to use Crossout on, then they can just use Crossout on Talents. But these cards were all very, very strong, especially Econ. This is one of the coolest cards to use in this deck, especially if you draw or can find Diviner, because you can summon Diviner, and then if they interrupt you, you can chain Econ, Tribute Take, and then Diviner summon to low from deck. If they end on Appaloosa, you can set this, and then Econ Tribute Take the Appaloosa, and then you have Appaloosa to negate their other stuff, and then Diviner summons a low from deck. It's even good going first, because if they hand trap Diviner, and you're forced to pass turn, you can set Econ, and then you can use Econ Take as an interruption, and then when you do that, Diviner will then trigger to summon low from deck, and then low will then trigger to place the trap from deck. And then if you have a ritual monster or ritual spell somewhere, which isn't too hard, you can use the trap to summon the Old Man from deck, and then the Old Man can then tag into Skull Guardian, so then you have your Omni Negate, plus you've taken that monster with Econ. Yeah, this card's really cool. I'm a big fan of it. And for the other board breakers, Darkwaller is pretty good. I think what makes Darkwaller good in this deck especially is that when you Darkwaller the Snake Eye player, what they're going to have left is mostly Promethean Princess, which you can just negate with Cerebus. And a lot of people are on the Jet Synchron build, which makes Darkwaller very good against that. Even against the Viking build, it is pretty good. Their board is a bit more layered with stuff that's not on their field, so it's not quite as good there, but it is still very nice. Droplet is like kind of a mix between Darkwaller and Econ, where it's like you can use it to dodge cards like Impo and Veiler, similar to Econ, but it also is good against a very wide board where you can negate multiple stuff. This is also another reason why I'm playing 3 copies of Pre-Prep, because I can use Pre-Prep to grab another card to discard with Droplet. Even though you can't always facilitate the discard outlet for Droplet, you can just chain it to stuff and it's still pretty good. What's good with Econ and Droplet is they are both good going first. Darkwaller is insane, but going first, it is essentially a blank card, but you can still use it as discard fodder for Droplet or for Libellion. Now, I do have Super Poly in my side deck. It's not in my main deck. I did test it extensively against Snake Eye, and even when you play every target like Panzer and the Earth Golem, I still don't think it's actually that amazing, because you have to go pretty minus, and even if they have something like the Savage and the Formula, and you can poly them into Panzer, it's still not that amazing because you have to discard a card, and then because you summoned a monster they get to use Promethean, which you then need Cerebus for as well, which is like 3 cards you have to use. It's not like terrible, but I generally think that these cards are a bit better. If I had known that the German Open would have had so few Snake Eye players, then maybe I would have played it. And for the last card, I play 1 copy of Coolbuy. Coolbuy I like in formats where it's good going second, which in this deck it is, because you can draw it with any board breaker and it's very nice. And then that is the main deck, which as explained before is 42, because there is a few iffy draws in the deck. And we're going to do the side deck first, because that way when we go through the extra deck I can have the side patterns on the screen for you. I have 1 copy of Odd Eyes, which I put into almost every matchup apart from Labyrinth going first, because it's really good, especially against Branded, because it negates the effect, not the activation, which means that they can't then use a second Branded fusion, or they can't use Lost to get around it. Then I play 2 copies of Phantasme, which is my second and third copy. This card is really good because it draws us into board breakers, and something that you can do is that if you already have a board breaker and a good hand, and you have this, and you want to play around talents, you can instead hold this for your turn, and then do it when they summon IP via the field spell or the Flamberge. 3 Cosmic. I do put this in against Snake Eye. The reason why I put this in against Snake Eye going second is because I'm playing board breakers, not hand traps. So I need to be able to clear stuff like anti-spell, summon limit, that sort of thing. But generally this card actually pairs really well with board breakers, because after you Dark Ruler, Droplet or whatever, their remaining kind of way to summon out the IP, if they're playing pure, will be with the effect of the field spell. So you can use this to pretty much clear their last interruption, and then Cerebus, the Promethean Princess. This card is also good against stuff like Flu and Kashtera. Then I play 3 Super Poly in the side deck. This is mostly for Branded, but it has coverage against Labyrinth and stuff, and is also pretty good against Flu. It's mainly in here for Branded though, and I play some pretty funny targets for it in the extra deck that you will see in a moment. Also for Branded, I play 3 copies of Forge Return. This card against Branded in particular is better than Bestials because they cannot negate it with Mercuria, which is pretty important when you are trying to stop being locked by puppets. And then for the last 3 cards, I play 3 Judgment as my cards for going first. The reason why I think Judgment is better than Summon Limit or Anti-Spell is because of Droplets. I think Droplet is pretty good in this meta, it's a good way of countering that. Whereas if you play Anti-Spell, they can just chain Droplets. Another thing with Anti-Spell is that it cannot stop evenly matched. The card generally can be, of course, less impactful than a Floodgate like Summon Limit or Anti-Spell, but I think it's a lot safer to help counteract those board breaker cards. And then on to the extra deck. We have Animar and SP, and I play Dark. I do not have a room to play Selene and Access Code. The actual reason to play Dark in this deck is because I use it to take their Albaz from their graveyard, and then I can use Albaz to make Mirror Jade or Stapelia. And then One Mondo, this card is of course very nice. Then we play the Chaos Angel, which you make with Trias plus Low. There was also another time where I made it against Runic Stun, where after I Dark Rulered the Yaugen, I used Econ to take it, and I used Yaugen plus Skull Guardian to make this, because this gets around Synchro Zone because it is, of course, a Synchro monster. And then if you already have access to Trias, or you want a different target for Diviner, you need to play Arclight and Entus as other options to send with Diviner. This one comes up a lot more with Econ, so that when you go summon Diviner, they interrupt, you go chain Econ take. In a new chain, you can go chaining 1 Diviner, chaining 2 Entus Pop, so they can't even Ash Diviner, and you get to then pop a card on their field and then summon below from deck still. For the rest of the fusion monsters, we have the Sanctifier for the Yaugen play, then Albion, Lubellion, and Mirror Jade, and Stapelia, which we make with Super Poly, but also you can make it if you get shifted because you can go Lubellion, and then you can put back the Albaz and itself to make Stapelia. Against Flu, I do side out of the Phantasme, so after game 1 I don't have the option to make this, which I think is fine, because if you get shifted against Flu, Flu normally won't kill you, so you can just keep the Brand Diffusion in hand to use for the following turn, where you will not be under shifter. For Super Poly, we have of course this, and then the more obvious Garura and Muddragon, and then the funny card that we play for Super Poly is Despian Proskenion. So this card requires a Despian monster, a light monster, and a dark monster. Now Quem counts as a Despian monster. One of the more common end boards for Branded is Quem plus Cartesia plus Mirror Jade, because they get to use Cartesia to fuse, and then Quem can bring back Mirror Jade and make it all these fancy stuff. However, you can fuse all three of these away into Proskenion, and then you can use the effect of this card to take their Mirror Jade from their graveyards, and then, because we play Branded cards, you can use the effect of Mirror Jade to send Albion to grave to banish a monster on their field, which makes Super Poly really good against Branded. But yeah, that has been the deck profile. Thank you all for watching. Big shout outs to Gabe and Simon, who came to the event with me, and a even bigger shout out to Connor, who drove me all the way to Cardiff and Wales for the Open, and then drove me and the boys back to London afterwards to then fly out to Germany the following morning. It's been a massive help in my World Points race grind. GG's to all my opponents. Have a perfectly balanced rest of your day, and yeah, adios.